Painted Grave. A short horror story. John Drake shuddered as he stared at the picture. He had painted a masterpiece, but a masterpiece of horror. It had dead white eyes and the famous motley beast, and it stared out from the lighted canvas. It had once been human, and it was portrayed standing next to a yawning grave, from which a spade caked with damp earth projected. Few men possess the courage to imagine such a thing, let alone depict it on canvas. But John Drake was a strange person. Possessed of an artistic genius that brought his creations to life, he was obsessed with painting nameless horrors. And in this picture, he had reached the pinnacle of his career. It felt alive. One could almost smell the damp earth from the open grave. And as for the dreadful creature that stood there, what was it? A ghoul? A zombie? Drake himself wasn't sure. He looked again, and a wave of dizziness swept over him. He couldn't tear his eyes away. The thing's glaring eyes seemed to hold him in a hypnotic spell. It took determination to avert his gaze, but he finally managed it. Whew! There was no doubt about it, he had done his work well. He had surpassed himself. He had breathed eerie life into the creation on the canvas. Now he needed to get away from it, away from that sinister, gaping grave. With a weary shrug, he crossed the room to a mirror and stood gazing at his reflection in the shadows. He saw his face, sensitive and careworn, and behind him, the reflection of the terrible picture he had painted. But why was the room so dark? As if someone had drawn all the blinds, shutting out the moonlight. Suddenly, the mirror showed him something else. A shadow moving about near the canvas. But how could the picture cast a moving shadow? Drake's scalp began to tingle. Now his ears sensed footsteps behind him, crossing the floor with a dull, persistent tread. It couldn't be. He could find out easily enough, simply by turning. Why couldn't he turn? What was holding him rooted to the floor, gripped by an unnamed terror? He started to scream even before he saw the face. For the thing was standing there, staring at him with glassy eyes, its fangs bared and drooling. Then, with an inhuman screech, it leaped. Drake fought with all his strength. Sweat poured off his face. His neck muscles bulged as he struggled frantically against claws that raked and tore. But it was too strong for him. Shrieking and struggling, he felt himself being dragged towards the canvas, towards a yawning, painted grave that was too realistic. The strange mystery of John Drake's disappearance was never solved. It caused a sensation for a while but was eventually forgotten. The police investigated but ultimately had to admit defeat, closing their files on the great painter. A large crowd attended the auction of his canvases, and the highest price was paid for the magnificent masterpiece he had completed just before he vanished, never to be seen again. It was a graveyard scene, astonishingly lifelike in every detail. There was nothing in the picture except for a filled grave, with the earth around it trampled as if a struggle had taken place. The end.